Thank you for coming tonight to our 2022 Fall HOA Forum. I appreciate that everyone's taken the time to come see us tonight. We do have a video presentation from the mayor. He was unable to be here tonight, but we do thank Councilman Walker for being here with us. So if the only thing is I'm asking, we are videotaping this tonight, so I will send out the link to this. It'll be available on our city YouTube page after. I will, as everyone thankfully helped us look at the HOA list, we will also send out an updated HOA list, information list to everybody too, so you'll have everyone's contact information. I'm only asking that everyone saves their questions for the end of each presentation, and any questions specific to your subdivision, please save them for the end so you can speak to the speakers themselves. And with that, we will get started.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brian Barnett, and I'm the mayor of the city of Rochester Hills. And unfortunately, I'm not able to be with you tonight, but I did want to take this brief opportunity to give you a quick update on some of the good news things happening around the city of Rochester Hills. First of all, thank you. Thank you for being an incredible part of our community, for serving at the most local and thankless of levels, and doing it with such integrity. We are grateful for all of you and for the roles you play in making our community the preeminent place to live, work, and raise your family. And along those lines, a few things that I thought I would draw your attention to spread the word about some of the good things happening in our community. First, I hope that some of you were able to join us for our annual State of the City address. This year we hosted it at a very unique location. We closed Auburn Road and celebrated what the Michigan Municipal League called the most incredible, powerful, and impactful program anywhere in the state of Michigan, the Auburn Road Corridor redevelopment. We took something that looked like this and turned it into something that looked like this. And we did it with about 1,200 friends who came down, a lot of them from the Brooklands, to enjoy the celebration with free food and bounce houses and, most importantly, a great message about the things happening in the city of Rochester Hills. One of those other great things that we mentioned happening in the city of Rochester Hills at the State of the City was the work that's going on at Innovation Hills. It is by far our most popular park. And to look at the attendance numbers, they've gone like this over the last 3 years. It's hard to believe that just last year we opened the playground, which was voted the best playground in Michigan twice this year by 2 independent groups. Now, a quick update for you. We are going to be closing the playground, not the park, not Innovation Hills, but the playground within Innovation Hills on October 17th. And it's going to be closed for about a month as we make some necessary repairs. It's going to take a lot of the grass areas there out. We just had so much foot traffic we couldn't grow the grass. Replace it with turf. At the same time, you'll see some of the new areas of the park continuing to be built. We've got about 30% new area along the playground that's already funded by our city council, and we'll make the playground an even cooler experience. And of course, next year, we've got the very innovative sort of Indiana Jones style rope bridge that will unlock about 30 to 40 acres on the other side of the river for passive trail walking and recreation. Innovation Hills, it's where it's at, and I encourage you to make sure the folks in your neighborhood know about some of the great things happening there. Now, lots of our parks have had improvements. Borden Park has also seen some improvements recently with a new shelter, a concessions area being built, restroom facility, also the repaving of the parking lots. Next year, Bloomer's going to see all new parking lots. Those things are stupid expensive, but important to maintain the integrity of the park. Back to Borden, you know, we've got new pickleball courts that are wildly popular. We're going to be adding lights to those in the next few weeks, so you'll be able to play pickleball even later. Lots of great things happening in our parks. Now, the other area we've spent a lot of time, and I want to thank you for your patience. Of course, every summer, we have a limited amount of time where we can redo and work the roads. This year, you know, we put in a new roundabout at DeQuinder, or at over by the cider mill, another roundabout coming in next year. A lot of work done to Old Perch. That program took a really long time, very frustrating on our end, but we have to work with the folks, supply chain issues and some of the other delays that were there. But all the projects are wrapping up now, and we appreciate your patience. And one project in particular that I want to draw your attention to that is going to generate a lot of community conversation, and that is a project that we're working on with the Road Commission and Oakland University, soliciting our residents' input on the Adams Road corridor, specifically Adams Road, the north terminus being Walton, the southern being Hamlin Road. 2-mile stretch, very beautiful road. Trying to get residents' opinions on what they'd like to see there. Certainly we know it's a beautiful stretch of road with incredible hills, some historic features, and some amazing trees. We also know it's one of our most dangerous stretches of roads without bike paths and safety paths, and one of the key areas, one of the most accident-prone sections of our city. So there's a lot of things going on there. We're in the process of soliciting input to find out more about what our residents would like to see. It's a long process, but there is a survey that you can fill out online. You can go to our website, which you can find on the city's website. Look for Adams Road, and you can give your information there on the visioning session for Adams Road. That process, that program, is about a 4-year process. So lots of time between now and then. If something happens, if something doesn't happen, right now we're just trying to generate information and see what our residents would like to see and what's important to them. Quickly on the economic development front, we've had an amazing year. We actually have more businesses in our community coming out of COVID than we did when we went in. Our vacancy rate is lower. We're one of just a few communities in the state that can say that. You've seen some of the new restaurants coming into town, many of the new businesses that are here, punctuated recently by the opening of the first new department store in Metro Detroit since 2008, if you can believe that, with the opening of Von Maur. Lots of new stuff coming to the Auburn Road corridor as well. From an economic development standpoint, you know we continue to be a place that is hot for economic development. The city's been blessed to win a lot of awards. Of course, I mentioned that we had the Project of the Year with the Auburn Road Corridor redevelopment. We're named Michigan's safest city for the 6th year. If you hear nothing else, make sure your neighbors know that you've made a great decision in choosing to live in the city of Rochester Hills, safest city in the state, 6 consecutive years. A Project of the Year, Playground of the Year, Budget Awards of the Year. We're like the Taylor Swift of awards. We win them all, and our team deserves all the credit for that. So we're grateful to have an exceptional team of people working for the city of Rochester Hills. Finally, just to let you know, if you want to stay connected, the best way to stay connected is to hit the RH Connect button on the website to connect. It allows us to text you. Why is that important? Well, you can choose what you want. We're not going to text you with a lot of crazy things, but if you want to know when a road is closed, if you want to know if there's a boil water alert, if you want to know when there's a power outage, we're able to get information out quickly to folks, much quicker than you happening to be on Facebook or just happen to get an email or be at your computer when we're sending a message out. RH Connect is a great way to stay updated on all the things happening in the city that you choose are important to you. Thousands and thousands of your neighbors are doing it. So if you're not, make sure you do it. You'll be the folks in the know. Listen, I appreciate all that you're doing. Appreciate our team that's there. We have the best in the business taking care of you tonight. As I said, I'm grateful to continue to serve as your mayor. Thank you for giving me a few moments this morning, and I'll turn the program back over to Jody Welch. Thanks.
All right, thank you, everyone. Up next, we have Karen Somerville from Assessing and Lori Taylor.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jody. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us tonight. I'm Lori Taylor, the city assessor, and tonight we're going to talk about some of our responsibilities and answer some questions if you have any. The assessing department is responsible for inventorying and valuing all properties, whether it be industrial, commercial, or residential. And we maintain all legal descriptions and process all land divisions and determine the land values. And we do site visits for every new construction. We perform reappraisal, which we're going to talk a bit about tonight. We do exterior maintenance, and we verify every sale that happens in our community. We measure and record all amenities of each one of the properties. We maintain the residential, commercial, and industrial sales studies, and we help homeowners when they are buying and selling their properties with questions that they may have. We provide customer service for real estate agents, title companies, attorneys, developers, builders, homeowners, and business owners. Back in 1994, if you remember, we voted on Proposal A. Proposal A created 2 additional values that we keep track of. Originally, we kept track of the assessed value, which is 50% of market value according to state law. But Proposal 8 introduced us to a new value called capped value, which means that your taxable value cannot go up any more than the rate of inflation or 5%, whichever is less. That every year we determine the cap value. It's based on last year's taxable value plus the rate of inflation. And by the way, in this current year, what we're projecting, we haven't been notified by the state yet, but very soon we will be notified any day now, what the rate of inflation will be for taxable value for next year, and we're projecting that it will be 5%. So for the first time, it will hit the cap. And I'm going to introduce Karen to talk about reappraisal.
So why do we do reappraisal? The state of Michigan requires that, well, they recommend that we reappraise 20% of our parcels every year. We have over 25,000, actually all parcels in the city, which would be about 5,000 a year. We have a staff of 3 appraisers that go out, and 5,000 is impossible. So what we do is we go out every summer and we pick different neighborhoods. We go through systematically based on the sales, and we go out to each neighborhood that we choose for that summer, and we go out to every home and we reappraise those properties. What that entails, as Lori was describing earlier, is we will send letters out. Typically, we like to sit down with the homeowners association first. We tried this a few years back before COVID, where we would sit down with the HOA first, explain what we do and why we do it, and then that way, when the other homeowners in the neighborhood get their letters from us, you can already kind of explain to them what's going on. And basically what we do is we come out after we've sent letters and notified you, and we measure the house. We ask to go through the interior, and we get all the data on the house and come up with an assessment. Now you're probably wondering why do we ask to go through and why do we ask to measure the home? We are required by the state to do that, to maintain the assessments on the properties. The good thing is if you have lived in your home over a year, it doesn't affect your taxable value at all. As Lori showed you in the prior screen, wrong way. In the prior screen, you have an assessed value, a capped value, and a taxable value. Once you've moved into your home and you've had that initial uncapping that first year, your assessment, everything we do when we reappraise properties, is based on the assessed value. So in your taxable value can never go up higher than the rate of inflation or the 5%. So in other words, if we raise the assessment, let's say 10%, you're not going to be taxed on that. So we don't hurt you in the pocketbook when we come out and do the appraisals. We're just getting the assessment right. And the reason we have to do that, if you look at this slide, if a house sells for $250,000 and we have an assessment of $100,000, and we haven't been out to appraise that property in a long time, the data on that house is incorrect. That would indicate we're required by the state of Michigan to assess properties at 50% of value. That would require a 25% move in your neighborhood. When we go out, we get that data right on your record card. We pick up the right information. Your assessment is properly placed at the 125. It would indicate that we wouldn't need to make a move in your neighborhood at all. So it gets the assessments right. It helps us to be equitable among you and your homeowners. We'll get calls, so-and-so built a deck without a permit and you don't have it on the record and I'm being taxed on mine and I did it properly and pulled a permit. It fixes all that. It makes everybody equitable. The appraisals are right, but you don't get hit in the pocketbook for it. So that's why we do reappraisal. We're required to do it. We're required to have equitable assessments. So just to give you a little bit of background of what's happened in the last 10 years, assessments, the average residential market value, you can see has gone up from $232,000 to over $402,000 in 10 years. And last on the list here is the SEV for our city is over $5 billion. SEV is your state equalized value, which is 50% of market value. and our taxable value in the city is over $4 billion. So when we look at all of the counties in the state of Michigan, our SEV is larger than 63 counties in Michigan. So it's a good place to place your money is by having a home in Rochester Hills. So that's a great thing. And we thank you for your time. Does anybody have any questions?
How many counties are there?
83.
Yeah.
83.
83.
So there's like 20 that are higher, right?
20 that are higher. Mhm.
In the back?
You're anticipating basically hit all the different subdivisions.
Well, it depends on your staff. After when the market went down in 2008 and the Great Recession, most communities in Michigan lost their larger staffs, so everybody's working on a smaller staff. In this community, it's probably like a 20-year cycle. Yeah, so it could be that long before we come back to your neighborhood again. So it's pretty important that we get the appraisals right the first time.
You indicated you're going inside the home as well as outside?
Correct.
If somebody has done a, renovation inside their home, then it does raise their SEV?
It raises the SEV, but it won't raise the taxable because that's capped at the rate of inflation.
On the first year. I mean, eventually it'll catch up over time.
What
Particularly if we hit
happens
a
is-
bubble where we drop in property values.
Well, the way that works is it happens incrementally. Like we would have to have a massive crash before your SEV and your taxable would match, and then your taxable could actually, let me take that back, your capped could wind up going lower and you pay on the SEV. That did happen in some cases for some people where their assessments went down. But we don't, when we go out, if there are new things that we pick up on the property, we're not inspectors, we're out to appraise your property. So we're not going to go back to the building department and say, hey, they've done this work. We're coming out there, we want to appraise that property, get it proper, and move on to the next property.
And what if a co-owner says they don't want you inside their home?
That's your right as a homeowner, and we respect that. And then we'll estimate. What we do is we take a sampling of all of the homes that have sold in your neighborhood, and we go through those first. And then what we've learned from those sales, we apply to the homes that haven't sold. So if we take that data, and we're going to estimate what we find is average in your neighborhood, and we'll estimate that way. So we don't hurt you because you say you don't want us in. We're not going to crank up your assessment. We're still going to treat you fairly and equitably. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen and Lori. Up next, we have DPS being presented by Keith.
Hello, everybody. My name's Keith Depp. I work for the Department of Public Services. I'm a project engineer for the Road and Traffic Department. We're here today. Paul Davis is our city engineer, deputy director. He's here if there's any other questions that maybe I can't answer, but we wanted to talk about a few different things with you, and one being how we set up our road programs, how we select the roads. And then a couple other things are just how we handle our road clearance, corner clearance with our ordinance.
Can you speak louder?
Sure. A little better. So, want to talk about road corner clearance and then also some crosswalk issues we see. So with our road repair program, our council and administrative staff had supported the residents' priority in maintaining roads, better than most do, I would say. But we put $5 million towards our local road projects each year. And about $2.5 million goes to our concrete roads, and the other half, or $2.5 million, goes to our asphalt roads. And the way we kind of do this is we use our, it's called PACER. It's adopted by other Michigan communities, and you know, it gives you parameters on how to rate these roads. The ratings are 1 to 10, so we have ratings, you know, starting at 1 that are failed roads, 10 are brand new roads. So, you know, as you can imagine, it goes in between there, good, fair, poor. So once we compile all the ratings throughout the city, we've been doing that annually. We put some maps together, which look like this, with all the city roads. And this goes in our CIP book too, if you ever want to look it up to see what your road's rated. You can look that up on the city's, you know, internet there. But beyond this rating system, we also, you know, talk to our DPS crews on how they see the roads and what condition they're in, because they're out there every day maintaining our water, sewer, plowing the roads, so they have really good hands-on experience. So we keep in communication with them very often. And then, you know, last but not least, as a high priority is residents' inquiries about when their road can be done. A lot of the times when, you know, we have a couple or few complaints or inquiries about the road to be done, if it matches up with our road ratings that the road needs to be done, we put a very high priority on that road. This is kind of, this isn't kind of, but this is our ratings over the years and how our roads have improved. You can see there's a steady decrease in, you know, poor roads. There's a little blip in 2021 where it goes up 4%, but that's just because there's a lot of cost increases with material supply issues and these days, so we won't really get as much bang for our buck on the roads. Plus, we've been doing a lot of other projects where we can't utilize the full amount of dollars. So I think we'll be improving quite a bit next year when you see these percentages. The other thing I wanted to bring up too is when you rank the city versus other communities in Michigan, we're top notch. I think, you know, it's really hard to say we're number one, but because everybody's a little different system, but we're up there. Here's a road that we consider, you know, poor condition, and as you know, you've probably already seen around town that, you know, we have to reconstruct the concrete roads, and we do one half at a time. So all in all, it takes maybe 4 to 6 weeks to complete the project, and you know, mainly we do that to keep access open for emergency vehicles. Here's a picture of what we would consider a poor asphalt road. As you can imagine, the cost to reconstruct a asphalt road is less than a concrete road because we can do the full width and come in and pave it, and you're not waiting for cure time. You can get right on it that day. So the cost, we can spread those dollars out a lot further. So as you can tell in some of our ratings, the asphalt roads are a lot better shape than our concrete roads because we've caught up to those so much, where the concrete roads, there's so many of them and they cost so much to repair that, you know, we're really trying to work hard to get those done too. This is just a picture of a fair road that we consider. Unfortunately, you can't rehabilitate a concrete road like an asphalt road, where we'll do like a mill and fill on an asphalt road, which just means you take out a few inches of the asphalt and then put a fresh course back on it. So really what we're concentrating on the poor roads, we'll have the DPS crews come in here and patch these joints the best they can, just to keep them going over the years until we can get to them to reconstruct them. And this would be an example of a fair asphalt road that we can do a mill and fill, which is, like we said, take out a few inches and then put a fresh course of asphalt on there, which is a lot less money than reconstructing the entire road. And that'll last, 10, 15 years. So, and of course, this is a pretty picture of a new road you get with the concrete, and also asphalt road. And the other subject we want to bring up real quick was corner clearance. So
The point system, how often are you going around looking at roads and reassessing what the points are?
right, how often were you going through? Normally we go through annually. Just recently though, we decided that we'll go through biannually, just because we've noticed that the roads aren't really degrading within a year, where the ratings are going down that much. So.
Having said that, that's a good question, because roads deteriorate at different rates based on the traffic, based on the ability to, thank you, the adjacent drainage course, whether it's a ditch or a storm sewer with curb and gutter, they can deteriorate at different rates. So it's important for us to get back onto these roads and review them. We do a windshield survey. Keith's one of 3 people that kind of go through and make a determination on what the rating of all these different road segments through the community are. Another thing that can affect the deterioration rate is just the materials. A good concrete road that's well drained typically will last longer than an asphalt one will be. But our intent is to make the road last as long as we can. And with proper maintenance, you can make them last longer. Milling and doing overlays is good for an asphalt road. It can extend the service life. What we don't want to do is get back to where it's a full reconstruct, because a reconstruction project is so much more expensive than an overlay. Or you might have seen like the black lines on the roads. That's crack sealing material. And when we have cracks come in the road, it's important to fill those cracks so we don't get ice forming in there and break up the road quicker. And so we do a lot of crack sealing. It's a real low cost rehabilitation for our road system that will extend the life. But it's a long answer to your question. Basically, we want to stay on top and keep rating the roads. And that will ensure that we can kind of minimize the ones that get to that very expensive reconstruct stage.
Just Thanks. Just curious, do you ever reassess going from asphalt to concrete, or is it's always going to stay the same?
I'll take that one, Paul.
We thought about it and we haven't done it. I don't think it'd be very popular. I used to be a concrete guy, the home I grew up in Westland, very long life living concrete roads. The home, I think it's still the original pavement. I mean, it's probably 50 years old at least. If our roads could be like that, I'd want them all concrete. But unfortunately, we don't have that same soil type condition here, and our roads don't seem to quite last as long as that. Asphalt roads are really nice because they're convenient. When we go into a concrete subdivision, it's going to be weeks of inconvenience. And it's, but when we go in and we overlay an asphalt subdivision, it's very convenient for the community. You can almost, and it's cheaper. I mean, sometimes the prices get closer, but you can overlay asphalt roads in a subdivision a couple times for the equivalent cost of maybe 3 times even of when you go into a concrete subdivision and have to reconstruct it all. So we've kind of tossed it around, but for the most part, we think the residents expect to have the same type of material for the subdivision that they moved into. So we have not taken a concrete subdivision and changed it into asphalt or vice versa.
Yeah, so what is the criteria if you're gonna do a new road? What material are you gonna use? What's the criteria for that? And in the second part of that question is, in our subdivision, we've got both. We've got asphalt and we got concrete. What goes on with that? Why did that happen?
Okay, basically the city doesn't initially construct the subdivision roads. It's the developers. So it's kind of the developer preference on how they want the material for their subdivision development. Now, you might have, like say, Stratford Knowles, I think that subdivision has got several different plats in it. There can be different phases of the same subdivision. It might be known as Stratford Knowles, but Stratford Knowles might have been done in concrete where Stratford Knowles 2 was done in asphalt. So sometimes you'll see those differences, but it's really the developer. The developer initially builds these roads, and then at the end they get turned over to the city for ownership. So we maintain them, and eventually we replace them, but they're initially built by the developers and really paid for by the residents. If it's a public road, when you move into your house, the cost to reimburse the developer is paid through your home sale. So really and maybe getting a little off tangent here, but that's why when we do gravel to pavement, we have a special assessment district process or policy set up, because those residents didn't initially pay for the paving of their road. So we have a special assessment district if someone on a gravel road wants to pave it, and then it'll catch them up to the original criteria that someone that moved into a subdivision with paved roads had to do when they paid for being part of that subdivision. Is that good?
Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as we're on roads before we get to this one.
Sure.
Our roads are HOA owned, so you're obviously not maintaining them. Is it possible for the city to come in and assess our roads, rate them for us, just so we have more information as we go out to contractors to either, I just recently got a cost of mill and overlay versus reconstruct of our roads in Sanctuary in the Hills. So, one's 200,000, the other's over 400,000. So it would be nice if we could rely on some of the city's resources just to give us advice and help us rate our roads.
Want to take that, or?
I can take it. Yes, so the city has a lot of private roads, and it seems like lately the latest subdivisions being built are all private roads. I think your type of request is going to become more common for our department. The short answer is, yes, we can provide technical assistance to you. We can go through there and rate it. We can even give you some advice on whether we think the prices you're getting are in the ballpark of what you should expect to receive. There's no deals out there nowadays. Prices are high on all the projects that we have. But if you want to, you can call into the engineering group and we'll send someone out and give you our opinion of where we think the road is, and also maybe what the treatment might be. If it's a fair road and it's asphalt, we're not going to tell you to reconstruct it. We're going to tell you you may want to consider a pavement milling and an overlay, but it's also dependent upon how thick your road was initially constructed. That might dictate what our recommendation is too.
I appreciate that. One other thing, you didn't mention it, but you guys have a great program on the website where if you see a problem with a road, you take a picture of it and submit a concern. I've done that a couple of times, and your response has been fantastic on some of our public roads. I just want to bring that up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I noticed that one of your earlier charts, you showed how 2021 took a hit a bit from maintenance. My question is, do the parking lots that are being done for the various parks come out of your budget related to fixing roads?
No, those are strictly through parks, and those aren't even rated here. These are strictly just roads, not parking lots.
Our facilities group, like Borden Park, that's being charged to the facilities, but Parks is also involved in overseeing and managing that project in addition to our group.
And the other thing I don't think I mentioned too about that rating going up a little bit was, we really saw a big change from the fair roads going to poor that year. It was just kind of extraordinary to see that, because you saw such a steady decline, but it was just, time for these roads that were fair, they finally jumped over to poor. So the other subject we want to talk about was our corner clearance and some of our sign obstruction standards or ordinances. We try to keep the corners and intersections clear of obstructions or sight lines so that, vehicles and pedestrians can get around these intersections without any problems. I think you can see, or I hope you can see here, basically from the intersection, 25 foot back on each side, if you draw a line between those two, this is the area that we're concerned about. So basically, there's two different types of situations. If you have bushes or shrubs in that area on the intersection, the bushes or shrubs have to be 30 inches high from the ground to a height so that you can have that vision in your car to see over them. So that, something like this is what we'd ask for. A lot of times I think residents would rather just remove that instead of maintaining it over the time. But that would be up to you. The other thing is, within that corner clearance area would be like a tree. So in that case, we want you to trim those trees up from the ground, all the way around the tree if it's fully in that area, up 8 foot. So, now we're looking at something like this so you can see underneath and through that tree. And then obviously, if any signs are obstructed by the trees or shrubs, we'd ask that you trim that too. So that's just generally what we wanted to bring up. So, we're not going out there and sending letters and trying to keep everything safe for the residents and pedestrians and drivers.
I'm concerned about enforcement.
You're concerned about enforcement?
Who enforces this?
Well, we work with engineering department normally goes out if there's a concern or it's, we're out and about, we see a problem, but we're not staffed to go out and fully enforce this where we're out on a daily basis looking for these issues. So it's a little more reactive, I guess, but when we do see an issue, we'll, write a letter to the resident and work with our Parks and Forestry Department to get some of the.
I was concerned. It's not the HOA responsibility to enforce.
Well, initially, we don't even want to get to the point where we're asking that they're trimmed because it is part of the ordinance. So, I guess technically, yeah, it is the HOA to make sure those are being trimmed and maintained properly. Does that make sense? Or?
It may make sense, but I don't enforce city laws as an HOA.
Well, I guess I get what we're saying is that if you're not, we'll enforce it. We're hoping we don't get to that point, though.
Isn't that one of I hope they don't speak.
Yes, sir.
20 foot off the street, city property?
About 16 foot behind
All right,
the
16
curb.
feet.
Yeah.
So that's all city property? All those corners? By who?
Do you want to go back to your slide? Go. Okay.
This one? Or?
So This slide that is being shown right here, the red dashed line is like the property line. So there is a portion, there, you're right, some of this is in the right-of-way, could be growth that's going into the right-of-way that needs to be trimmed back, but there is oftentimes a little triangle that's actually on the private property. And people have a right to use their private property, but we also want to make sure that these corner clearances are maintained and don't cause a problem for other vehicles or pedestrians that might be kind of not visible because of these clearances. So it does go into the private property sometimes. And generally for the enforcement, like Keith said, we start with a letter, we look for compliance, we'll send a notification. And a lot of times residents just might not be aware that it's a potential hazard. And for the most part, we generally get cooperation. It's very rare when someone really digs in and doesn't want to cooperate and says, you're not touching my tree. I guess in a worst case scenario, then Jody will come and yell at you. We'll look for our ordinance enforcement to kind of maybe take it beyond us and hopefully not issue a ticket, but if it really got ugly, that's a possibility.
So the last item we wanted to talk about real quickly was our crosswalk, or the Michigan state laws on crosswalks. I think, the city is really fortunate to have, such a robust system. We have over 100 miles of pathways, about 26 miles of trailways. You really, it's another thing that's hard to compare with any other city. It's just incredible. But the unfortunate thing is that, there's, I think, 2% of pedestrian accidents are from all accidents, but 30% of those are fatalities from pedestrian accidents. So, it's really something we take seriously. And we just want to kind of point out that, I think one of the important things is there might be some confusion, is that with crosswalks, it's not when the person's outside the crosswalk that you need to stop. I think a lot of time, people are trying to be very nice, and it's a great thing, but that'll also potentially cause some accidents too by stopping without when you need to. It's really when the pedestrian's in the crosswalk that you need to stop.
Yeah, crosswalk laws can vary amongst different states, but in Michigan, you can be a good Samaritan. I've seen a number of times people trying to use the Clinton River Trail and cross Avon or Livernois, and a vehicle will slow down and stop, and a lot of times almost get rear-ended because it's unexpected. If the person has not entered the crosswalk, the vehicle should really continue through. It's not until the pedestrian enters the crosswalk when they assume control of the right-of-way, and then the vehicle has to stop. So I know sometimes it can be a little confusing whether someone's going to enter a crosswalk. The pedestrian still has a duty to, you can't just jump into the crosswalk and be reckless. They have a duty to enter it safely. But once they've entered it, then they have the right of way. The vehicle needs to stop. If you're driving along these other major roads where trailways are crossing, though, you don't have to stop for the pedestrians. And in fact, it could be more confusing and end up in a rear-end accident if you do that suddenly with a vehicle behind you. So we just wanted to bring it to the attention. I've noticed it a number of times while I'm driving through the community of that exact condition happening. And I know there's confusion out there on how the crosswalk should go. We have a bunch of, you saw the Adams Road corridor between Culbertson and DeQuinder. There's a bunch of crosswalks that have been installed there for pedestrians. And once the pedestrian enters that crosswalk, you have to yield to them. But until that time, it might not be a a good idea to stop for them, especially if there's heavy traffic and the vehicle behind you isn't expecting you to stop.
I assume it's the same if the pedestrian is on a bicycle?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Is entering the crosswalk stepping into the street? Okay. As long as they're behind your curve, you said, right?
Right, if they're just standing on the side and they're not making a movement to enter the crosswalk, you don't have to yield to them.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Good night.
Send that chart to us.
Thanks, Keith. Thanks, Paul. Up next, we have our Rochester Hills Fire Department. We have Ann Eccles speaking about food truck safety.
I don't actually have a food truck, so that's just cute.
Do you have a fire?
I have a fire truck. Yes, a small fire truck. Hello, my name is Ann. Thank you for having us come out here. I will be hopefully quick, but I wanted to talk to you guys about food truck safety. So we have a lot of events in the city. I don't know if your HOAs or neighborhoods do like Food Truck Fridays or Taco Truck Thursdays. But we see a lot of food trucks in the community. Some are at special events, some are at the schools, some are in the neighborhoods. Currently, we do not have an ordinance governing food trucks, but we are in the process of writing something where we can kind of control where food trucks are commercially, and then also we're developing a certification program, hopefully in the future with the ordinance and everyone in the city, so that we can certify food trucks. So how many of you have eaten from a food truck at some point? They're pretty delicious, right? So it's nice to have a food truck rally. You can go get your tacos and lasagnas and fried whatever you want, and fried Oreos. But how many of you know that food trucks explode? Couple, yeah, not many. So just Google exploding food truck, and you'll see a whole bunch of videos of food trucks exploding. I didn't want to go through a whole thing tonight and show you fun videos of trucks exploding. But food trucks have propane, so their main source for fuel is propane. So the propane tank is usually mounted somewhere on the truck, usually in the rear. They drive down the roads. Roads in Michigan are fantastic, right? So they're bumping down the road. They're coming from Macomb County somewhere. They come to your location, and the couplings on the propane can come loose. They can have a propane leak. As soon as they ignite their burners, when they turn their stove or their oven on, that can cause an explosion, and actually, it usually only kills the food truck owner. But we don't want to have any events in the city where anybody dies trying to get a taco. So there are some things you can do to have a food truck that's a little safer. So there are some fire code regulations regarding mobile concessions or mobile food vendors. So there's going to be a handout when you guys leave about how I kind of pick a safe food truck, and then on the back it has all of the fire code regulations. So if you're having an event and you are going to do something like a special event permit that you would get through the building department, we will come out and actually inspect your food truck or your special event. So if there's a church and they're having a gathering on a weekend, I know St. Paul's Albanian Catholic Church does a big July 4th festival. We go inspect the tent. Sometimes they have food trucks, and we'll go inspect those. So things that you want to look at when you're selecting a food truck or inviting them to your property. This is also for liability wise, right? Like if something goes wrong and you as the HOA invited them into your community, you want to kind of minimize the risk to your family, to your neighbors, but also reduce kind of the liability side of it too. So food trucks are required to be protected if they're cooking anything with grease-laden vapors. So they're frying stuff, they're frying cheese, they're cooking meat, smoking meat. They have to have a commercial hood system just like a restaurant. So when you go to a restaurant and you see they have the filters, they have an exhaust hood with fans, and then they have an actual fire suppression system built into the cooking equipment. Food trucks are required to have that just like any other restaurant. So that's one of the things that we look for. A lot of food trucks do not have those. What we want people to do if there is a fire in their food truck, we want them to exit, and we want the food truck to put itself out. Okay, we don't want it to get to the propane tank or do anything like that. So they're required to have the hood, they're required to have a suppression system, and then one of the other things that we look for that's a newer item is an LPG gas detector or a natural gas detector. They make little plug-in detectors. You should have these in your campers and RVs if you have propane or natural gas hooked up to power those too. But it's a little plug-in. It's about $15-20 from Home Depot or Lowe's or Amazon. We require food trucks to have them as well. So once they turn their propane on to start cooking, hopefully that will alarm if they did have a leak. They should be checking. You can check with soapy water. You can obviously smell propane. So they're required to have that. And then just some other things that aren't really, extinguishers. They're required to have 2 different extinguishers as well. One is the red extinguisher that you see kind of everywhere in every commercial building. It's an ABC, so that puts out all kinds of fires. It puts out wood, liquid fires, and electrical fires. And then they're required to have a K extinguisher. So there's silver extinguishers, it's K for kitchen. They're required to have a kitchen extinguisher as well, and that will put out the fry material, so the vegetable oil, the animal fats, whatever they're using to fry with. They need to have both of those things. So that is kind of the fire code stuff. And then for you guys, I would also check to make sure that the person is insured, that they will cover themselves and their vehicle if something goes wrong. And then they should also have some kind of certification from Oakland County Health. Oakland County Health comes in and inspects restaurants. They also inspect mobile food vendors. They come out to the Festival of the Hills, to all of our vendors, and check them there. So they should have some kind of certification from Oakland County Health and like a safe serve, some kind of certification that they're cooking you food that's not going to make you sick. Does anybody have any questions?
They don't need to be licensed to do this.
So they have to be licensed by Oakland County. Oakland County will license them just as a business. But currently in the city, we don't have a process yet to kind of certify trucks. So we're hoping, ordinance is working right now on like the commercial side. If someone wants to park outside of a business and stay there for a while, we're taking care of people who want to do that. But we're looking at, we've talked about a certification program with the building department where building, electrical, mechanical, and fire department come together and certify trucks. They would come in kind of like garbage trucks. Our garbage trucks in the city come, they meet in a place once a month, and the garbage truck gets inspected. They put a Rochester Hills sticker on it, and then the truck is good to operate in the city. We're looking for something similar to do with fire trucks so that you can tell, yep, this truck has been in the city, they've been inspected by the city, and they've been improved by the city, so we know they're a safe truck. And then once we have that, we'll end up with a vendor list or a database of trucks that we have certified, so that you would know, which ones to pick and which ones not. We had a guy apply, and he sent a picture of his setup to me, and it was a fryer sitting in his front yard with a propane tank like 5 feet away, and there was grease all over the ground, and his truck was over here, and he was cooking something in the truck here, but he fried outside, and like, that's not the guy you want to bring to your house. Yeah. Any other questions about food trucks or fire department in general? All right. Oh, yes.
Is it true we need to get the alarm notification forms? Alarm notification forms, are they available at the fire department?
That's probably a sheriff thing. Yes, that's for your burglar alarm.
Right.
Yeah, fire department doesn't do anything with fire alarms in your house like that.
Okay,
We'll show up to your house. Yeah, we don't fee residentially for false fire alarms. Yeah. It's the guys in brown.
Oh, one more question.
Yeah.
What is the requirements for addresses on homes?
They need to be visible and on the street front. And then probably more of an ordinance, but yeah, we need to be able to see it. If we can't see your address and you have a medical emergency and we can't find your house,
So it doesn't have to be over the garage door?
I'm not aware of any
or
location.
Maybe, or possibly not the same color as the brick?
Yeah, it should be contrasting.
Right.
Yeah, contrasting colors, big enough to see from the street. So if if your driveway is really, really long, maybe the house isn't the best place, right? It might be like on the street. Mailboxes are helpful, but if all your mailboxes are on one side, then, yeah. Yeah, we need, for us, if it's on fire, we're going to find it. But if it's a medical emergency, we don't want to delay care because we can't find where you are.
Right, thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Eccles. Up next is Oakland County Sheriff's Department Deputy Mark Hixson and Taser.
My name is Deputy Hixson. Mark is fine. I work for the Sheriff's Office, been with the Sheriff's Office for 25 years. Been in Rochester Hills for 23 of those years. Spent a little small stint in Oakland Township, and then I'm back here. My presentation today, give or take a few minutes. Any questions you want to ask, feel free. Let me hit a few of them before I even start. The alarm registration. Yes, you got to register alarm every single year. Why do you do that? Because alarms change, and people change and who they want to call. And I can tell you, when I worked midnight shift for 12 years, if I took 12 calls in a night, 8 were alarms. In 26 years in law enforcement, I've made 4 alarms that were actually legitimate break-ins. 4. And I've gone to, 1,000, right? So we need to contact people and say, why did the alarm particularly go off? Doctor's office, 3 o'clock in the morning, where the balloon's ducking up and down, and why, that sort of thing. So every year you contact Brittany Burke. Pretty easy now. She lets you do it right over the phone. If not, the form is on the website, which go from the city to the sheriff's office, and you send that right in. Crosswalks. Yes, you do have to stop if the car is stopping for the person, whether they're not in the crosswalk or not. Yes, the law states they have to be in the crosswalk. But if the car is stopping southbound Livernois, and they're southbound Livernois south of Avon, and they're stopping for that car, and you rear end that car, as you were saying, it gets the follow too close thing, right? So it's not the impeding traffic on the person, where it could be argued that, but it's you for failing to maintain your vehicle. It's called fail to stop in the assured clear distance. It means you're kind of following too close. What if it was a ball or a little kid or something of that nature? So let's see, alarms, crosswalks. Was there another one? I think that was it. So, all right, let's run through this one. I left it in here, and I saw that, I was going to say the truck. I told my captain to put it on there. We're actually going to all those trucks now. They don't make the Crown Vic anymore, and they don't make the last Impala we had, so all the sheriff's office is moving over to full-size Tahoe trucks, so you'll see less of those, less of the cars, and more into the either Ford Explorer or in the Tahoes. Not for any reason. When I started here 20-some-odd years ago, we had one Tahoe, one four-wheel drive, and that's what we took on N59 during a snowstorm, so now we have them all out there. This is who you have right now. There's 1 captain, 2 lieutenants. I don't need to read it all. 6 patrol detectives, community. I'm the guy. I'm the one. I'm the community resource deputy. 3 in the schools, and we'll talk about that. 3 deputies. It says no fill. How to explain that? The sheriff's office contracts for the fill and a no fill. A fill would be an area where they want a minimum number of people. So I don't know exactly if Addison is a fill or no fill, but I'm going to use them as an example. If there's X number of deputies that work up there, one takes a vacation day, you don't fill you got to fill that spot. Rochester Hills, you might have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 guys and gals working on that particular night. So we won't necessarily fill that spot. They already anticipate 1 or 2 on vacation or that sort of thing. Administrative assistants, there's 2 of those. One is Brittany, who does the alarms, and 1 other technical assistant. So 62 total. Our calls for service is steady, but they're going up, and you would think they go up statistically based on the number of residents. I mean, every corner around here, if they build something, if there's an empty corner, they're building more cars that are here. I forgot to mention in the beginning, if there are those of you who don't know me, I also live here too, and I'm the HOA president, so it kind of comes full circle. So 2020 was COVID, so it's going to fall down a little. Their calls just went down. People were home a lot, but they've gone back up in 2021. Group A crimes are your larger crimes. You can see they're moving down. Rochester Hills always says it's the safest city all the time, which is true. I live here and work here for a reason. but your bigger crimes are the reason why that is thefts and domestic assaults. Like it or not, people don't always get along with their relatives or their significant others, that then leads us to get called. Thanksgiving and Christmas are the worst, right? Because everybody gets together and you don't like Uncle Joe and Uncle Joe's there, and then it gets a problem because you're drinking, watching the Lions game, it just goes downhill. See, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So. Group B crimes, thus the disorderly, driving under the influence, those are falling down also, which is a good thing. And disorderly in Rochester Hills is pretty wide open. It kind of covers a lot, and that's a good thing also. But they fall down, or they have been falling down. Effective December the 1st, we are getting one new deputy on the midnight shift. So that's a good thing too, based on city residents. Who can tell me the number now? I don't know. Are we past 75,000? We're close there, if not. So they're adding one more deputy. Again, it's the fill, no fill, so there's one more person on shift. School resource officers, we're adding 2. Rochester Community Schools is getting 1, and Avondale School District. Avondale had one before, many, many years ago, and I think they eliminated, I want to say 2007, 2008. So if you didn't know, Rochester Schools has 13 elementary, 4 middle, 3 high schools, and 1 the alternative ed, and then the new admin buildings in the city of Rochester. 4 of the elementaries are actually in Oakland Township, and then Avondale has Avondale Middle, and then they're all alternative, or there's, I don't want to say special, it's a lot of the advanced students there also. The one off Auburn Road. So that's all Avondale School District. And Avondale actually goes, it's Hamlin and Crooks area, and then moves all the way over, actually all the way over to Nino Savaggio's, that whole corridor along there. So we're adding a sergeant and a deputy to that. The flock system is an automated system that is in effect now in Rochester Hills. This is huge, and if I could sell it to my neighborhood, I'm going to jump on it. So what it is, it's an automatic license card reader. Let me give you an example of how it works. So you're driving by, and the flock system camera takes and records the the license plate of the car. Not the speed of the car, it only does the license of the car, which is the same information I would get if I'm following you in that car. The reason why this system I think is hugely beneficial is the example I'm showing here is a car with a gentleman there all the way, you're right. So he was involved in a fraud in a parking lot where he used fake $50 bills to commit fraud. So that's a felony in the state of Michigan. We have no idea other than we know it's a white SUV and we're guessing it's a Chevy. So we're guessing the time between 9 and 10 a.m. So we plug in 9 and 10 a.m. southbound Rochester Road because we know the location where this was at. Out pops that car, run the plate, find the owner, arrest bad guy. So how does that equate to HOAs? In my HOA, there's 4 HOAs in a 1 mile square. Hawthorne Hills, Bridgewood Farms, Adams West, and Thornridge. Anybody here from those 4? Perfect. So my proposal, whether it goes or not, is we get the flock system at all the entryways, right? Charwood, Bedlington, Saratoga, I'll get them all right, Kilburn, Summit Ridge, and way in the south end, Bridgewood Farm. Man, you would lock that whole neighborhood down. So in the morning time when you wake up and your car has been LFA'd, larceny from auto, and they stole things out of 15 cars, not a problem. We run every single plate. Every HOA can put one in if they want. $2,500 cost for each one, $2,500 a year. Hypothetically for us, let's say it costs $15,000 divided by 4, it's $4,000. Man, well, that's beyond huge. So and it's not through the sheriff's office, it's through this particular vendor. And the only one that has access to the system is the sheriff's office. No, they can't run it. We can't. There isn't, like, the HOA can't find out who was driving through a neighborhood at 3 o'clock in the morning. But it would be, if it's used more and more, it's going to be great for catching criminals, I guess. So, and then you could go one step further. If it becomes more renowned, you could say flock system in effect in this neighborhood, right? And if somebody knows what it is, kind of like the HOA when I put the little signs years ago that said neighborhood watch, same concept. So.
Can I back up?
Sure.
$2,500 a year?
Yeah, per camera per year. Okay. Yep, $2,500 installation, and it's a maintained system. And if a car runs it over at 3 o'clock in the morning because they had too many pops, you call their company and they come back and put a brand new one back up. Anything? Nothing? Really? No? Come on. All right, I'll hang out for a while. I think there's one after that, and then I'm back to my CERT presentation. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Maybe not me, Taser. I forgot to introduce him. This is Super Taser.
He's your dog because he's a city Rochester Hills. Well, not my dog. He's owned by the county. We have 10 of these dogs now. So they're all just meant to be fluffy. And I'm proud to say that your dog in Rochester Hills is AKC certified, and he's collected every certification one dog can get through the AKC. So he's got all this stuff.
Up next, we have Tim Hollis with the Building Department.
All right, thank you very much. Well, everyone, my name is Tim Hollis. I'm the Deputy Director of the Building Department. And it's good to be here tonight. Good to see all of you. Thanks for coming out. I'm joined tonight by our Director, Mike Bizanko. He's standing up in the back there, looking like, what did we say he looked like the other day? He's growing he's already on the no-shave November, getting ready to go on his deer hunting. All right, in just a minute I'll introduce a new member of our team, but building ordinance and facilities. Now, it's called the Building Department, but as you probably know, it's the 3 divisions, building, ordinance, and facilities, and all housed under the heading of the Building Department. We are continuing to see building off the records. I wouldn't have guessed this when COVID started and material prices went through the roof that we would see permits continue to go up, but permits continue to increase, and our team is busy out there every day inspecting the new construction, the remodels, all those kind of things. We're seeing inspection numbers that we haven't seen in probably since before 2008, where we're seeing some days over 135 inspections a day. We are a team of, right now we have 7 full-time inspectors. That includes building inspectors, mechanical, plumbing, electrical. So you can imagine those numbers. Just today, our mechanical inspector had 27 inspections himself, mechanical. I'm not sure if that's just the time of year and people are like me and tried to fire up my furnace the other day and it didn't work. So I had to get a repair. But we are seeing numbers continuing to trend upwards in building department activity. A couple of our projects, major projects, are helping drive that. This is Legacy Apartments at Adams and Hamlin. All the foundations for all those buildings are in now, and you're seeing most of the buildings are up out of the ground. There's at least 1 or 2 that they haven't gotten too far out of the ground, but the foundations are in. This is a community that's going to be over 350 apartments. So you heard the mayor talk about Adams Road. You can imagine what that's going to do to traffic. Just keep that in mind when they talk about this survey for Adams Road. So that's one of our major projects is going forward. Another one is Redwood Apartments. This is out by 8 Cider Mill on DeQuinder. These are actually townhouses. They are considered senior living, but they're not. They're all independent living. Townhouses meaning that there's nobody lives above you or below you. You are like your own house. You've got a wall dividing you between you and the neighbor. And they actually fall under the residential code versus the commercial, like the Legacy Apartments, where everyone lives over top of each other. So this project, if you haven't driven out there lately, it's well underway. We've issued almost all the permits for the buildings out there. There's a few that they're looking at making some possible changes that we're waiting to hear from them. So those are some of our major projects. You're seeing things go on all around town. Every time I think that we're getting close to being built out, they find new piece of property to punch a street in, and we still got Pulte and Lombardo and some of the big builders, but we've got some of the small builders that still continue to move forward with building. So we're glad to see that things continue to move forward with that. All right. I'm sorry?
How many units in the 1x8s?
How many buildings are out there, Jeff? Do you know? Like 30 buildings, I think, something like that. Yeah. And some of them are 4, 5, and 6 units, so I couldn't tell you exactly how many units off the top of my head. So next, I want to introduce to you not a new member to our team, not a new member to our team as a whole, but a new member to our management team, Jeff Schultz. Jeff, will you stand? Jeff has been promoted from being one of our building inspectors to the new inspection services manager. So Jeff's going to give me some much needed relief because for a couple of years I've been doing kind of double duty without that position filled. Jeff will have all the inspectors report to him, and so if you call, you may be talking to me or you might be talking to Jeff. We're both available for you, which means we now have a whole of a building inspector that we are interviewing for right now. So hopefully we'll have that position filled soon as well. And we haven't been full staffed in a while. We've been running with a hole here or there for a while with either not having an inspection service manager or now not having an inspector here or there, but pretty soon we hope to have all those positions filled. Okay, so we have a lot of construction guidebooks. They're available on our website. There's some back there on the table as well. If you're building a new house, you're building a shed, you're putting in a pool, we've got all that covered. So we're here to help with any questions you have, but those construction guidebooks can answer a lot of your questions. They're pretty detailed. They even give you sample drawings if you're going to build something. They're not copyrighted. A lot of people, they'll take that sample drawing, they'll photocopy it, they'll change the details to be what they actually want to build and submit it, and that's fine. We are all electronic now, so all plans are submitted electronic. All plans are reviewed electronic. You literally now can apply for a permit, submit your drawings, get your review done, pay for your permit, and receive your drawings back that you would then go copy off, because we need a hard copy for the inspectors when they come out, without even leaving your home. Now, not that we don't like to see you, but if for your convenience, you can do it from your convenience of your home. And you know, that's I guess maybe one good thing COVID did for us. It pushed us forward into this electronic age, and we are one of the leaders in it. We have other departments coming to see how we're doing it. So we got a lot of cool computer screens that we do reviews that we can mark up on the computer and send comments out, or put your approval stamp on there and send it back to you. So, but anyway, those guidebooks are there for you to help with any questions you have, with any projects you have. So Jeff and I are here to answer any questions you might have. Yes, ma'am. I was going to say either I did a really good job, because there wasn't
Just
any.
anticipating me. Some of these new buildings that are going in, so you talked about Adams Road and Hamlin there. There's new building at Livernois and Auburn right up against the roadway. Just seems like there's a ton of congestion going into relatively small plots of property. And I'm just curious, is there a rule, a guideline that you follow for what type of congestion there is? People in space that's being built out?
Okay, so when it comes to commercial developments, it all starts with our planning department. Unfortunately, I don't think anybody's here from planning tonight, but they have a lot of meetings. When people have a concept, they come in and they talk to the planning department, and that happens before it really ever hits our door. When we see it, it's when they're actually submitting the plans. They've kind of got those approvals. Sometimes they have to go through, oftentimes they have to go through the planning commission, and then in some cases all the way to city council to get approval to actually put that building there. And I don't know all that criteria about how congested it can get, you know, how they look at that. But that would be something that you could contact our planning department. I'm sure they could explain to you, or go on the website. There's a lot of information on a website from the planning department. Yes, sir. He's coming with a microphone, because we are recording this. So
we have a new subdivision, and only a year old, and people are starting to put in their whole house generators. One person put one in already, and they put it in the back of their house. Another had submitted plans to our architectural review, and they wanted to put it on the side of the house, really close to us, actually. And we told them, no, it needs to go in the back, and here's Rochester Hills ordinances. So we contacted the city, and there were some ordinances having to do with minimum amount distance from the property line. There was a sound ordinance, and I think gaseous emissions and that kind of thing. And I guess that ordinance just changed. Now there's just a noise ordinance. There's a daytime and a nighttime. And looking at it, it looks like, I don't know where they could put the generator and still meet the noise requirements, because it's like 65 dB at the property line, but the generator itself puts out 67 measured 23 feet away. So I don't know if you guys come out and measure those things, or how does the permit go and how does the inspection go with respect to noise?
Okay, so they are required to get a permit for a whole house generator, and that is one of the things we look at. Generators, we look at them as detached accessory structures, so there is a minimum distance from a property line of 5 feet. The generator manufacturers, they will mandate the requirement of how close to the house it can be, how close to a window for the emissions and that type of thing. That comes right from the manufacturer. I don't think the noise ordinance changed, but yes, you're right. We're seeing people trying to put in bigger generators that aren't going to work where they want to put them. And so our mechanical inspector looks at that, when he goes out for the inspection. The permit is pretty much issued over the counter for a generator, but he goes out for the inspection. He's looking to see where's your manufacturer's guidelines and what do they say that decibel noise is going to be. So it's very important for someone buying a generator to understand that and buy the right one that's going to fit and meet those noise ordinances. Otherwise, they're going to have an issue when they get inspected.
Yeah, because they'll get the permit, they'll put it in, and then they get inspected and say, it's in the wrong spot. So
right. Yeah, we're trying to get the word out there about generators because they're becoming more and more popular. Same thing, we talked at the spring meeting about solar energy becoming more and more popular. There's a lot of rebates and things on that, I understand, still going forward. So you're seeing a lot of that, but there are ordinances about where they can be. Solar is a lot less restrictive because you got to be able to put it so that it gets the sun, right? So they are allowed pretty much on any side of your house, but they can't extend out past the house. If you can put them ground mounted, but there's areas you have to, you have to still maintain clearance to your property lines and things like that. But yeah, we're trying to get more information out about that, and we're continually developing new handouts and information to put on our website about that as we see these problems coming up.
So it's really incumbent upon the home putting in the generator to maybe come down here and really understand what those noise requirements are.
Yeah, and their contractor that's doing the install.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because there's a nighttime of 50 dB, which means, nothing can be running. Do you really enforce this 50 dB limit during a power outage?
Well, that's a good question, but we're not here at nighttime, and a lot of that is more reactive. So if we got a complaint, then we might have to refer to ordinance, and they would have to decide, are they going to send someone out at night to check it? I don't know. You want to comment on that, Jody?
Generally, in a power outage, that's going to be considered an emergency use, so we're not going to restrict the noise ordinance for that.
All right.
Yeah.
So is there some place that there is a noise ordinance on the city website? Because I have never been able to find anything. It sounds like you did.
There is a noise ordinance in Municode, but I wouldn't know the section off the top of my head. We can get a card when we leave and email me, and I can get that to you for sure.
Yeah, if you go to municode.com, NUNICODE.com, there's a place for you to log in. You don't have to log in or sign in. You just click Code Library, and then it'll give you a map of the United States. You click Michigan, and it'll give you all the communities that are on Municode. You pick Rochester Hills, and it'll take you right to our Code of Ordinances, and you can type in your topic. It'll take you to all those sections that you want to see. Any other questions for building? All right, thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Up next, we have Dylan Morgan with the Ordinance Division.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you all for coming. Today, I'm going to talk about a few of, I guess I would call some of our most common questions and or concerns related to ordinance. And this one I want to talk about was residential parking. The City of Rochester Hills did adopt this ordinance in early of 2022, so it is new. And this ordinance is no parking on the front lawn permitted. So I guess that was just kind of informational for everyone to know. The next thing that I just kind of wanted to refresh on is obstructions. Now we're headed towards kind of fall and winter, so some of these things will be related more so to that. Obstructions, no person shall place or maintain any article, thing, or obstruction in the street. Some examples of this that we see: pallets containing construction materials, snow cleared from private property and pushed into the roadway, can't have that. Dumpsters placed in a roadway in front of a residence, and dirt or sand piles in a roadway in front of a residence. So those things are prohibited. The next thing to refresh on, solid waste regulations. Solid waste containers shall be kept in a clean and sanitary condition at all times and stored in the side or rear yard when not in use. So they can't be in the front yard when they're not out to the road, obviously. So solid waste containers shall not be placed at or left curbside for more than 24 hours. Yes.
When you say curbside, that means not in the road, correct?
Yeah, I would say you're correct, yes. Yeah.
And you enforce that?
Yes and no, I would say. I mean, if it's in the roadway, it could be sheriff's department, right? Like if you're.
Well, that's what I'm asking. I have one property who constantly puts them in the road. It's really a problem because it's at an intersection also, and it's congested enough. I'd love for them to have a ticket.
Yeah, I guess with that, I'd say.
Who do I call?
If it's impeding the flow of traffic, sheriff's department. If it's something where you think we could just leave a tag and talk with that homeowner and get them to maybe move it so it's not impeding traffic, then we'd be glad to help you out with that.
Thank you.
All right. And so my last one here to talk about, the ugly word snow. It is coming, unfortunately, sooner than later. Rochester Hills has an ordinance that requires all interior subdivisions, sidewalks in front of your house be cleared of all snow and ice within 48 hours after a snow event and remain clear at all times. This is intended to help prevent a slip and fall accident in front of your home, and also provides a place for the neighbor kids to walk to school and or the bus stop. Some tips for clearing the sidewalks: make sure to shovel the snow off of the sidewalk on your property and not into the street. Again, we don't want that. Clear snow to the curb so that collection crews can access your trash and recycling bins, and they're not behind the snow banks. It's pictured there, the one with the check mark. It's kind of ideally how it would look. And then if city workers happen to plow snow back onto the sidewalk while clearing the street, it is still your responsibility to clear the sidewalk, but obviously they're going to try their hardest not to do that. So with that being said, myself, Matt Wells, Jody, we're here to answer questions if anyone has any. Any questions? All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Dylan. And with that, that concludes our fall forum for tonight. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Please stop on the way out. We've put information out on the table for you to pick up on your way out. If there's anything you're interested in, please take a look. Our business cards are also out there, and we will be around to answer some questions if anyone has any additional questions. Thank you.